Hello friends, if you follow this channel, you will know that Raymond and I took an Amtrak train trip for the first time ever, for either of us, just a couple of months ago. This video is a departure from our normal camera, photography, and gear videos. I mean, of course, we had cameras with us, and I created an entire project around the trip. We exclusively used Leica gear for the project, but today you will see some interior videos of the train where we used our Insta360 1X2 camera. Trains to us are small inside, but they have their own beauty, and we did our best to capture our Amtrak experience visually, both inside and out. In case you're new here, hello, my name is Leigh. My partner is Raymond. We have been sharing videos here on YouTube for nearly 12 years. Like I said, they nearly always have at least something to do with photography. Cities, forests, deserts, anywhere. Subscribe if that sounds interesting to you. I know a lot of you will be curious about our tickets and the two different types of rooms we stayed in and the overall experience. So let's start there. For one, we started our trip at night and the train was also late. That's not really a complaint. Train schedules are tricky. Our route that left Flagstaff, Arizona and goes to Los Angeles is a heavy freight route. So our first lesson was to be flexible on timing, which, I mean, we all generally have to be during travel anyway. We had printed our tickets, but we left those papers at home accidentally. Luckily, we had our tickets in email and we just presented them on my phone for boarding, and it was no problem to board that way. Note that the Amtrak train tracking on their mobile site was super cool, and we were able to see when the train was still east of Winslow, so we could just get comfortable on the Flagstaff classic station benches. Even with the delay, because of the app, there were no mysteries or surprises with location and timing. For the first leg of our journey on the Southwest Chief, we purchased tickets for a bedroom. This is probably more than we needed and maybe more than most people will need, but since we were starting the trip at night and we had not previously traveled by train and I was working, we splurged on that first night to ensure that we'd have space for our stuff, our own bathroom / shower combo, and just a little bit more space to spread out and sleep. There was a spacious bunk bed and enough space to maneuver around. Depending on how much stuff you keep in your room, we each had a suitcase and a camera pack. You might have to step over your baggage or your traveling companion at some point, but it's a train and you've got your own bed and bathroom, so despite the living space, you're living large as far as train travel goes. One issue that first night, this partition between our room and the next. It exists for larger groups to be able to basically connect two rooms for travel. Just after I had lain down in bed, it opened on its own due to just the motion of the train. With all of the reflections and being in a new space, it actually took me a moment to realize that I was looking at the person in the adjoining car laying down in their bunk bed and not myself in the mirror on the door. That's obviously not ideal. We assume that it was supposed to latch, but suddenly the old duct tape we'd seen on the door earlier made sense. The partition was broken and it should definitely have been fixed for passenger safety and security. Each car does have its own attendant, but frankly, it was late and we were tired. We just closed the door as best we could and I sort of pushed a suitcase against it to minimize movement of the panel and mostly slept the rest of the night. If I'd been traveling by myself, I likely would have been more alarmed. Let's say that this is an opportunity for Amtrak to improve their service. The lesson learned for us is to immediately check the functionality of the various room items when first boarding, rather than kind of wake up to a surprise. We both slept pretty well after that. If you don't mind the movement inherent to train travel, you're fine. And for Raymond at least, he said it rocked him to sleep. He's not exactly a bad sleeper though. Overall, it was smoother than we expected, sort of like an airplane in mostly smooth skies, and the rocking of the train is not abrupt like turbulence. One thing that did scare the HE double hockey sticks out of me was when a train would go by on parallel tracks in the opposite direction. It is so fast and so close, but you just have to trust that trains pass each other all the time, and the tracks and the trains are sized so that they don't crash into one another. The next morning, I did make use of the shower in our bedroom. It was a little cramped and a little bit strange to be working around the toilet, but it worked for me. I went to the dining car for my oatmeal and coffee breakfast, feeling fresh as a daisy, but maybe a little bit tired. We even had time to check out the observation car for a bit. I definitely could have spent all day there watching the changing landscape go by, though they did kick us out after a while. You can't just be anywhere on the train any old time. But then we arrived in LA. In fact, we were just about on time, despite the late departure from Flagstaff the night before. We climbed off the train to wait for our next route, which was LA to San Jose on the Coast Starlight. This route actually does continue up the coast to Seattle, so we would only be doing part of the route. While at the train station, we only had about 15 minutes to run around toting our bags and capture some photos before queuing up for the next train. On this train, we went for the Superliner Roomette. Still a splurge, but definitely more affordable than the full bedroom that we had the night before. The Superliner Roomette has bunk beds, but not much more. And we chose this smaller room since this would be a daytime leg for us. And the most attractive aspect for us was the privacy. And actually, the bottom bunk converts to 2 seats with a fold-down table. If we were going to be sleeping, those seats fold together into a bed and then with an upper bunk that folds down. We kept our bags with us and there was just enough room. We do travel fairly light, but we were stepping over bags to get in and out of the room, so you might want to check your bags. We did keep the upper bunk folded away and that gave us plenty of headroom. In this configuration, Raymond and I could work and chat all day, taking time to enjoy the changing views out the window. This was also the room of some misfortune. We were presented with the option of making a reservation for the dining car for lunch or ordering from our room attendant, and then he would bring the food to the room. We ordered to the roomette and then we waited several hours. And when our attendant finally appeared, he stated that one of our items wasn't available and that we would need to make our entire order again and again wait for an unknown period of time. We asked if the attendant could bring the available items just to get us started, and the answer was no. We were quite hangry at this point, and we wished that we had chosen the dining car option. We did actually use the dining car for our evening dinner, and there were long delays there too. We were told that they had just put a new menu in place, which may have been a contributing factor, but our lesson here was to bring snacks. And maybe enough snacks to be comfortable delaying a meal several hours. It's possible that we caught them on a bad day, but it was our first train day, so that's our only experience with the dining situation, so we have nothing else to work with. Overall, we did learn a couple of tips that we've now shared with you all, but what I don't want you to underestimate is the impact of mindful travel like this. We could have driven to San Jose or flown for less money in less time. Raymond was concerned that he would feel anxious about the longer time frame, but he actually said that the trip is so much longer than those other options, but in a less confined space, that it had the opposite effect for him. It was calming for him. I travel with Raymond quite a bit, and a calm Raymond is a happy Raymond. Just don't get him hangry. Again, especially if you are a picky eater or if you need to eat at certain intervals, bring a lot of snacks. One last thing. I was asked by numerous people about photography while on the train. I would say that photography opportunities are limited. You can certainly capture photos in the train cars. You can even wander among the cars for a bit. Remember that you can't just be anywhere anytime though. You can also capture photos out the windows. It's a little challenging with reflections and dirty windows and, a moving train, but at least on the routes I was on, you can't get off the train to take photos at most of the stops. So I obviously captured photos and videos on the train, and you can too. You just have to get a little bit creative. Now, I know many of you are from all over and from all areas of the world where train travel is much more common than in the US. So for everybody, what has your experience been like? Is it something that you do often, or like us, is it something that hasn't been on your radar, but you're curious about it? Or are you a serious, real veteran who can share some tips with all of us? Let me know down in the comments, and we can all have a discussion down there about train travel. I would say that I would ride the train again now that I have the lay of the land and I know what to expect. It makes the travel itself a part of the adventure, kind of like a road trip. And speaking of adventure, I will add a link in the description of this video to the photo video project that I was doing on this train trip so that you can see more from the train and the trip beyond the train. On your way down there to that link, please give this video a like and subscribe if you haven't already. And thank you for watching.